Welcome to the Motivation Without the Hype podcast with your host, Gez Perez. He's an author, high-performance coach, and motivational speaker. This show brings you inspiring messages and interviews to unleash your greatness in life and in business. So let's get started. Hi everyone, welcome to Motivation Without the Hype podcast show. My name is Gez Perez, a former procrastinator into an action taker. We bring you inspirational messages and interviews, including motivational insights, tips, principles, and proven strategies that you can take action on without the hype in unleashing your greatness in life and in business. We appreciate you plugging in and spending time with us, and we have a very special guest all the way from Mexico, and I'm super grateful to have her on our show. Now, Mollie is a private consultant helping celebrities, professional athletes, government leaders, and CEOs move from merely successful to wonderfully fulfilled. After 14 years as a psychotherapist, Mollie uses her knowledge, expertise, and energy to create radical transformation so her clients can unlock life's missing pieces while continuing to make massive impact on the world. Just take note, massive impact in the world. Now, in addition to the More with Mollie podcast, by the way, it's an amazing podcast. Got to check that out. Her expertise advice has been featured in national publications, including NBC, Forbes, Forbes Women, Thrive Global, and much more. So, without further delay, Mollie, welcome to the show.
Hey, I'm so glad to be here and connecting with you. And I was just thinking, I know this is technically a podcast without the hype, but you have so much hype and just who you are in the positive way that you use the word hype. I'm just loving every ounce of it. I'm so excited to talk with you again.
Guys, if you haven't connected with Mollie yet, I know I'm speeding up the process. You got to get connected with her. She's such an amazing human being. You really got to check out her episodes. They're fantastic. And let me tell you, not only that she's impacting the world, she impacts your life as well. So, Mollie, please tell us about yourself and what you wonderfully do in this world.
For sure. I always wanted people to be their greatest self. And I don't think that that's from achieving more or peaking your performance more. That can be a part of the regimen for you. But I think it's truly being yourself, like really embodying and living as yourself. So you're getting more fulfillment in your day to day just by showing up as you, not by checking another box. And so it's been, a joy of mine that I've been able to help people for a very long time through psychotherapy and through consulting who are at various stages of life, various different career pathways, but always have an intense determination for more out of their life. And what I love about my job is I help people really unlock that, areas where they're stuck so they can grow into more. And right now, my focus is exclusively on public figures because I've seen over and over again that they struggle so much with what's actually going on behind closed doors, but they're expected to perform to this whole other level. And they deserve the support to keep thriving, not only so they thrive as humans, but the impact that they have then on the world is a really positive one, backed and grounded in intention.
Wow, that's amazing. So how did you find your purpose to really unlock that and really started your journey in doing what you do best and what you love?
For sure. So I've always personally been in the arts. I actually just came off of doing a 2-week training in dance. It's a side note.
What? What type of dancing, by the way?
Yes, we could definitely talk about dancing. It's always been a hobby and more than that, a passion and a piece of my artistic soul. And I grew up in a household of music. Arts have always been really important to me. So, one of the things I noticed earlier in my career was that I was getting a lot of artists who were calling me and it just really flowed, the work with them. And then I got more and more high profile people who were calling me and it just seemed pretty seamless. There are two themes I think that really clicks for me working with public figures. One is, I have a deep admiration for the willingness and ability to be raw and vulnerable in the way that they're expected to when they show up each day or however regularly they're in camera or recording something. There's just so much constant pressure in that process. And I have so much respect for that and have also come from some of that world. And the second thing is I know, and I think almost everyone does, that life can feel really lonely. And there's a lot of, I'm an only child. There's a lot of themes in my life that I really can connect with that feeling of what it means to be in isolation and how to keep thriving. And the more and more you speak with people who are public figures, as much as they're surrounded by fans and their team and tons of people who either need something from them or hope something from them, there's also a lot of isolation internally. And so, one of the things I really want everyone to feel is that you're not alone and that life can get better just by being more of yourself. So it's my gift to be able to do that with people who I know not only are going to feel better in their own skin, but also be able to change the minds of others as they communicate with all of their fans.
Wow. #blessed. That's amazing. I mean, like, I didn't know that you're into arts, which is great because you've got that creativity and you anchor that to help more people. Speaking of isolation, because in this world right now, people are experiencing the pandemic.
Yeah.
Some countries are fortunate to have certain strategies to alleviate some of the numbers or lowering the numbers, people in vaccination, etc., etc. But a lot of people are experiencing a lot of mental health issues now. I'm sad to say, statistics are rising in terms of suicide and mental challenges. And you mentioned about isolation. So people who are actually experiencing that, actually hearing and watching this video podcast or audio podcast, what can you say to, really help people who are actually experiencing some mental challenges or even some isolation? Because, people are feeling lonely. How can they, pick themselves up and really keep themselves active? Are there any tips or, strategies that you can share to the audience?
For sure. There's so much that we could talk about. Of course, like everything I share here is educationally based. It's not my, therapeutic advice. It's just educationally based. And if you need to speak to a therapist, do get whatever resource, whether it's a spiritual guide, a coach, a therapist, whatever speaks to you, you deserve support. That's always the number one thing I say, especially if you're struggling and feeling alone in the pathway. The second thing that I think that most people respond to and think is kind of basic, but I always think it's really important to say, is your feelings are valid. Some people hear me and they they hear it and they want to move on. They want to go to the strategy, right? They want to get to the strategies. And that actually in itself, being able to think that, to really go, okay, self, I'm feeling sad today. That's real. Okay, self, I'm feeling hopeless today. It's been a lot of days in isolation and I'm feeling lonely and it's really frustrating and I'm feeling less and less of myself. That's real. One of the things that I see people do over and over again is they counter it. They go, I'm too weak because I'm thinking that, or, I could be stronger to get through this, or, everyone else is going through this. Why should I feel this way? No one else seems to be feeling this way. But all of those feelings then counter your feeling. And if for a second you can step back and just go, self, your feelings are real and it's tough and it sucks. Hopefully you can bleep that out.
No,
but
you can say that.
Cool. Being able to be nurturing to yourself by just giving yourself the airtime when you self-talk about your own emotions is such a good step one. And then there's so many other strategies we could talk about. I don't know how deep you want to go into this. I could talk about this probably for 45 minutes.
We can have 2.0 Mollie and Gez episode. No, seriously, you mentioned about acknowledging your feelings, right? Not many people do that. It's they go through crap, they go through isolation, and they go through trials and tribulations and issues and whatnot, but they don't seem to acknowledge that feeling. And I think that's really important, because if you want to have your breakthrough, you got to acknowledge it, feel it, and get over it. But not many people are willing to go through the process of acknowledging. Is there a reason as to why people don't want to go through that road to actually deal with it and acknowledge that type of feelings?
So I'm nitty gritty with words. So because I think words share messaging to ourselves and then to others. So you use the words, get over it, right? And I think that's tied into the answer to your question. I think there's this idea or this perception that if we are strong-willed enough, we will get over it. We'll move on. And while those phrases, I think, have good intention, I don't think there's anything malicious behind it, I think sometimes it tricks us in terms of what the process should look like. And I like to think about moving through it, right? Because we have to if you were in a, this is such a weird imagery, but if you were in a tub of slime, you'd have to literally in slow-mo, push your body through it to get to the other side, right? And that's kind of what any big distressing emotion feels like, which I think goes hand in hand with the isolation that people are going through. So I think one of the things that people expect of themselves is to just move on, get through, jump over it. And that's not what it ever feels like for any of us. If you've been through loss or a breakup or, any like really tough moment in life, it doesn't feel like that, right? So if we start to experience that, we start to doubt ourselves more, question again, all those things that I was speaking about earlier. Am I not strong-willed enough? Do I not have the tools? Why is no one else feeling this way? And all of a sudden, now we're combating that and the feelings we're feeling. So I like to really reframe it by looking at how do we move through this by having patience with ourselves and really deciding what we want it to feel like on the other side.
You know what? I just had an aha moment. Now, I'm not being religious or anything that type, but, there's a scripture that says, I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. It's not to the valley, it's through it. And I just got an aha moment. And through the other side is greener pastures. But you got to walk through the process. And I just got an aha moment just by you saying that you got to walk through it. And you're right. You're exactly right. When you reframe your mind from a different perspective, it's like, oh my gosh, yeah, it makes sense. So guys, if you listen to this, don't go over it, walk through it. Yes.
Yep.
Oh man, virtual high fives here and there. That's amazing. Man, I tell you what, guys, Mollie is on fire today. It's just amazing. So I know that you've gone through a major journey yourself. And, through your learning experiences, you mentioned about impacting the world and impacting, and just into the transformation. What is your main resonance that really gets you life going? And what is your real mission that keeps you going every single day?
I really just want people to feel like themselves. So I want them to be able to show up as them. And when I say that, I mean authentically you, not a couched version of you or a masked version of you, but being able to sit in who you want to be, what you actually feel like, what you actually think in almost all settings. Because I really believe when we're able to do that, we improve the world, right? If you get to show up with the skills that make you excited, you're a more excited person and a more passionate person. That's going to bring a whole new energy to this universe and a new skill or trait or quality that the world really needs because you have been gifted with it in a way that no one else has. So I'm just so excited to see people break through this feeling of stuck and doubt and disconnect with their truest self so that they can open up and shine. And when I can see more people do that, when I can get my hands on helping more people do that, I shine and light up. It's just the best.
Wow. Not only that you're purpose driven, I know a lot of people who are kind of feeling, I want to be like you. I mean, be myself, but I want to, be purpose driven. I want to find my truest self. How do you unlock that when people are still struggling to find out what their true potential life is?
Yeah, I think the few answers. Okay. So first of all, I think
Was that a lot of question in one question?
I love it. We're all always discovering. I am not discovered. I am not at the other side. I'm on my life journey. And in this moment right now, that's my answer. And if we can be accepting that we're always in a state of change or we're always understanding ourselves more, and that's the gift. It's not being somewhere. It's the process, like we're talking about, of moving through where you are currently to where you want to develop and all of the gems that come along the way. So it's so special to be able to figure out what speaks to you now. Forget purpose. Purpose feels like it has all this pressure on it. It means so much. I know it speaks volumes to certain people, so don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to throw that word out. But I think it really can be helpful to think about what speaks to me right now, what means something to me right now, and how am I giving myself space to incorporate that in my life, even if it's in the smallest way. There were different answers to that question of what my passion or my purpose was a year ago, 3 years ago, 10 years ago. We change. And the more acceptance we have for ourselves, as well as appreciation for all those chapters, because it brings us to the now, the more we really can dive into appreciating what speaks to us and then living that. And tangent here, I know that is a difficult thing to figure out how to live that. So maybe we can unpack that. But I think even if it's taking an iota of an interest, right? Forget maybe the way you're making revenue. If you're interested in yoga, but right now you're in isolation, even if you just look at a Pinterest photo of yoga, I say that counts. You don't even have to do yoga. Just give yourself the gift of inserting something that means something to you even if it's for
Wow.
3 seconds in your day, week, month, or year.
That's powerful because people tend to think of the doing and like, oh, I got to do the yoga. But even that simple tactic, it's like, yeah, it actually makes sense. And you add upon that, that's phenomenal.
Yeah. And you can also give yourself credit for it, right? Even if you're too tired or too fatigued right now, again, I'm really thinking about people who are in isolation, but it could be not people in isolation who are feeling that way. Giving yourself credit for even the babyest of steps you're taking. And then once that becomes seamless, you can insert it more and then just flow with it. But you deserve the gift of having the thing that speaks to you in your life more.
I think that's really important is to give that gift to you. And I know that we did mention a little bit that you lived in a jungle concrete and now you live in a backpack life. What made you to make that decision? I know that, being in a surrounding where, the work life, the business life, the community, but you actually shifted yourself from a completely different environment, from concrete jungle to paradise jungle, you could say. What made you the move to really experience life at its truest? Because some people want to live life with freedom and they kind of like are held back, but they want to experience. It may not be a jungle life. It could be something where they can, do something for their lives. Say, I need to do something for me this time. And I think they're missing out the true essence of, self-care. Can you just share just a little bit how important is self-care and really do things that you want to do in life?
I think it's super important that we listen to ourselves. And again, self-care is another one of these terms that I really believe in based on the way I think about it, but I think also has stressed people out on a whole other level. So I like to think about self-care as nurturing yourself. That's it. And so again, if that's looking at a photo and just of something you love, that counts, right? If it's giving yourself a foot massage, that counts. If it's watching Netflix, that counts. Whatever you need to unpack and let yourself breathe and feel like yourself, that's what I consider self-care. Of course, there are so many nuances to how we could talk about the topic, but I think when we make things simple, everything starts to click. And I think, I can talk a little bit about my decision and my transitional year away from New York City, which has my heart always, and I've lived there for a very long time. But I don't think it's really about my path. I can always share my story. I think the goal is to just, and the way I've thought about it is I always want just a little bit more for myself. I always want to find a way that I can feel more myself or be in my own skin a little bit more. And I understand that doesn't happen immediately. And so I think one of the things that clicked for me, New York was a really scary place in my mind, when COVID first really got noticed in the States, and there was a lot of death toll. And, I really did not want that as an environment for me to grow and foster. And I had the ability to go somewhere else. And so, I tapped into thinking about, okay, well, if this wasn't a temporary feeling and this was a more permanent feeling, how would that look for me? And how would that gift me things that I need right now to thrive? And that's not always so simple, right? If you have a family or you've purchased a home, that might not be a decision you can make, but figuring out how you can feel more in your own skin. If you're trapped in an apartment right now in isolation, what can you bring in to make that environment feel more like your safe haven? Being able to just integrate that constantly, how do I do a little bit more as a gift, not as a pressure, can be so special. So that's part of what led to all of my decisions and constant pushing forward, moving forward.
So I know that you've have so much experience in psychotherapy, and you've connected with high profile public figures, celebrities, etc., and we know that they're also human beings like us. Those who are quite curious in terms of what you do, there could be like a separation between the both, but they're actually the same in terms of taking action, self-care. A lot of people tend to think that, they're the echelons, they're just there. But they do certain things that operates at a high level for success. Can you just share, what mindset do these high profiles do that some of the people who are not doing the things that want to aspire to becoming one day?
Yeah, forgive me again, words mean something to me, so I'm going to get nuanced here.
Please reframe me. I'm always open. Reframe me.
Awesome. Which is, I don't think there's a difference. I mean, I think obviously there are many people who have studied, the kind of like determination and willingness to deal with intense adversity. But I don't think that there aren't people dealing with intense adversity who don't become well-known or famous. I don't think we should idolize anybody. I think we should just understand who they are, their own story, and the concepts that they needed to build and grow into their adventure and their next stage of life. I think there is a level of not accepting no and understanding that you're constantly going to find a path, even if you get a bunch of no's, is definitely something that I see uniquely. But I think if you're someone who's not a public figure, you should acknowledge the way you have an incredible story and what leads you to growth, and focus more on who you want to be rather than what you see someone else being. That's where anyone, public figures included, gets stuck, right? If you're a government leader and you aspire to be a legacy and a legend the way the government leader was in your country 10 years ago, you have a pressure on yourself, right? And that comparison game doesn't help anyone. Understanding what makes you uniquely important and then figuring out a way to integrate that into your daily work, life, what the people around you, what makes you happy, passionate, and fulfilled, that's the key. That's it.
See, you're so simple, but yet profound. And I think that's such a really good insight, because many people complicate a lot of things. They do a lot of comparisons. People who are, wanting more things in life, and they're just at the tipping point where we know that they're more than enough. We know that, and I love what you said. If I was to rewind again about their unique brilliance, and I know, and we know that they're both gifted. We know that they're more than enough. They can change the world. They can impact, and become, history makers in their own world. What would be your message to them to push them up to the next level, to, I got to do this. Let's go for it. I'm going through it.
Love it. Okay, so a few things. One, endurance is no joke. This can all sound like fun and games and nice and simple, but you need endurance if you're going to continue to move yourself through, right? Get to where you want to be is going to take stamina in like ways unimaginable. And the only person really who has control to stop you is you, right? When you fall out of that energy and lose steam, which is going to happen to everyone, right? The goal is, what do you need for endurance? If you are into sports, which I really respect and appreciate, but like my detailed knowledge is minimal, so you have to not judge me on that.
Love it.
But if you're a sports fan and you look at the sport that you love, studying how an athlete has to have endurance to not just get through one play, but the entire game, right? They need training, they need practice, they need a certain diet and regimen, they need to have, certain electrolytes, they need all of these factors to help them move through the process. And it's asking yourself the same question: what do you need for endurance as you keep stepping towards who you want to become? And knowing that there are going to be bumps and days where there's nothing moving forward, and days where you feel stuck and stagnant, and that could include a team, a consultant, a psychotherapist, etc., so that you can keep moving forward. So that's number one. Number two, and I think this is super important, and it might sound like it contradicts what I said previously, but I promise it doesn't in my mind, which is, it can be so helpful to remember you're not alone by using references of what already has existed that's similar to what you're trying to achieve. Now, it's not to create a model that's parallel, unless that's something you want to do. It's not to, compare and say, okay, well, this person who I want to be like, got here by 35 and I'm 36 and nowhere near that. And too stressful, throw that out. I give you permission to throw that out.
Out the door.
Out the door. Instead, what I actually recommend is to find a biography or an autobiography, or maybe it's a person just telling their story on video, and listen for the moments of challenge, right? Hear the stories of the ways in which they struggled, and then look at the ways they found options. I don't even want to call it solutions, but options on how to move through it. Now, you can use that, to remind yourself you are not alone. Everyone, even the person you want to become, goes through struggles. And if someone has omitted that from their story, you're not hearing the whole story. Let's say it that way. And then two, you can look at the ways they found resolution and try out some of those methods to see if they work for you. And if they don't, that means nothing about you. It just tells you that that option is not what you need to keep moving forward. Okay, third thing, and then we'll go back to your brilliant questions, because I love chatting with you. You always have the best questions. For sure. Number 3 is that it's just so important to hold on to the fact that no one can be you at all. No one can be your unique self. Even if you have a twin sibling, even if you're one of 8, like, you actually probably in those scenarios you see more that you're unique in comparison to everyone else. And your voice matters so much. And if you can tap into that and remember that somehow some piece of who you naturally are, what you naturally do, needs to be given to the world, that can find an inspiration, I think, in our day-to-day, even when things, get to that tipping point and struggle to move to the other side.
Wow. Amazing. Oh my goodness. This is actually, everything that you said in these 3 steps or tips or strategies, however you want to put it together, you pretty much answered every question because it's so profound. Like references, your unique brilliance. Oh man, if there's like an imagery, if I can edit that would be amazing. So I know this is going to be a 2.0, and I know that for sure. But I always ask this question to every guest that's on the show. What is your meaning of motivation without the hype, and how to use motivation for your personal success?
It's a good question. I think motivation is something no one sees but you. We think it's everyone hearing all the hype, right? But motivation with the hype to me is getting up in the morning, is deciding that it's probably a really great idea for hygiene to brush your teeth. You may not have the energy, right? You might not want to put your feet on the ground yet, but it could be really helpful for you, anyone you smooch, for your own dental hygiene. To brush your teeth, and that takes energy, and then then the day has even more things that require energy. So I think motivation is the thing we need from ourselves, for ourselves, to keep moving forward, whether that's what we're saying, how we are cheering ourselves on, how we create environments that keep us thriving. That's it. It's that simple. It doesn't need to be more than that. It just needs to come from within, this feeling of I matter. It's important that I'm myself and that I contribute who I naturally am to the world.
Boom. Mic drop. This is amazing. Oh gosh, we can go on forever, but I know there's gonna be another one for sure. And I've been getting so much cool feedback, so this is amazing. So guys, thank you so well. I'm actually getting ahead of myself, but I'm really excited about this. Guys, you gotta get in touch and get connected with Mollie. She's again amazing. For more information, how you get in touch with her, all the links, all the informations are provided on the show notes. And don't forget to follow, subscribe, and also provide a great rating feedback at the podcast show called More with Mollie. So please do that. It will mean the world to me as well. I'm just so blessed and grateful to have her on our show. So guys, all the links are in the show notes. Do get in touch with her and connect with her. So if this episode has been very helpful and uplifting, we'd love for you to write a review to inspire more listeners to get plugged in. We will continue to provide high value content in each and every episode. If you don't mind sharing this podcast show on social media by inviting others, it would mean the world to me. Every time you tag me, we will get the opportunity to share those posts, and together we can make a difference. I say it again, together we can make a difference in the lives of others through inspirational episodes just like this. So there you have it. In closing, continue to unleash your greatness and tell yourself that I can, I will, and I must, and we'll see you on the next episode.